See restaurants, hoity-toity hotels, they're everywhere. So do apply. Dobbs has, and they've accepted him.
Perhaps you should try again, sir.
Hi, Mebla Snacks. Great crunchy taste.
Melba!
Yes?
You said Mebla.
Mebla?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Oh, yes,
I said Mebla. Are you sure?
Start again.
Melba. Melba.
Action!
Hi, Melba Snacks. Great crunchy taste. In a fox.
Box!
What?
Box!
Everything I wanted with this car. It impressed me completely. Take a test drive and experience.
Dips.
Box!
Or toppings at mealtime or snack time.
The other way around!
And ideal for eating, right? Out of the box. Was that it?
There are some words in the English language that are in a friendly and fondly remembering way. Don't look at me while I'm fumbling a word. Monty Python, Faulty Towers, Faulty Speech. My guest tonight was at the heart and soul of those brilliant British ensembles, and he is John Cleese, actor, comedian, author, legend, failed dental student, and God knows how many things. And I couldn't help noticing you backstage reading your nose in a book.
Yeah. Well, I'm on theoretically, although I'm looking forward to chatting to you because I loved it so much last time. I'm on theoretically to publicize a book. I mean, this book came out in London 18 months ago. So I've been reading it frantically to see what it says in case you've had time to read some of it. And I had this image of the two of us sitting in adjoining dressing rooms, desperately mugging up to sort of throw the book away and talk.
You're close. At the part I'm in, the Japanese psyche is being explained somewhat to you, and how we might profit from emulating parts of it.
That's right.
But I don't want to give away the mystery of who did it by getting into. We were talking before about memory of things, and you said one of the most haunting things. I think I'll never forget this. It has to do with keys. Could you explain? Are you willing to confess in front of
Yeah, well, I mean, it's terrible. It's as you get older, you see, you just remember less and less. So I pull my keychain out now, and I'm going, I think, what is that key for, you know? And I spend the next 6 months trying to figure out what that key opens. What is it doing on my key ring? It must have opened something at some time. It's the same with address books. Don't you find people's names written in your own handwriting, and you've no idea? If the police said to you, who is this person? I have no idea. They would never believe you.
You're asking us to believe that it's in your writing and you don't know who it is.
That's right. Can I tell you about a friend of mine called Michael Winner who started writing his autobiography? He's a film director. And Michael knew that the first time he'd ever been on a film set, been at St. Albans film set, he knew the year. He'd gone and met a very pretty young British starlet who was just becoming famous. She was doing a series of films called The Huggets, which were famous in England, Jack Warner and Kathleen Harrison. And he remembers this so clearly. It was the first moment he was ever on a film set, there with the Huggets, there with this very pretty girl. And he thought, I'm just going to check this out. He checked when he did the autobiography. He found that the pretty star had never been in any of the Huggett films, that the Huggett films had never, ever been filmed at the St. Albans studio. I mean,
you mean this whole thing was Twilight Zone or something?
Yes, he's no idea where it came from. This is what Pinter's plays are about. You realize that?
Yeah, but can he remember anything that actually happened?
Well, he no longer knows. I mean, this is one of the clearest memories he has from his childhood, and it's been completely constructed from nothing. At which point you begin to think, well, who am I? You know, people have their names tattooed on the inside of their wrists.
It only takes a few hundred more of those, and it's amnesia is complete. There's a marvelous...
I did do this show before, didn't I?
Tell me your name, I'll tell you. No, I've always scared by the thought of total amnesia for some reason. At an impressionable age, read a piece by Burton Rouchet, who wrote those Annals of Medicine pieces in the New Yorker. And one begins, a man is standing in front of a hardware store in Minneapolis looking into the window, has no idea how he got there, who he is, what his past is. Life begins for him standing there looking in the window of this hardware store. And
Well, I have something similar.
that would shake you up. But
Yeah, I have something similar happening to me, which is that in the old days, my family, my wife and her two boys, or my stepsons, my two daughters, used to listen to me some of the time, just occasionally. Well, what I've noticed now is they never listen to me. And this happens so often now, I begin to have this fantasy that I'm in one of those stories, you know, where there's a car accident and the guy gets out of the car and he comes around and he sees everyone talking, and ever so slowly he realizes that his body's there in the front seat, you know?
Ah, yes.
And that he's dead. So I keep thinking I must be dead. I must have been killed. You know, there's a car out there with my dead body in it and nobody can hear me anymore. It's very alarming. It's age. I'm 55. What are you?
I'm 55 at least, without any trouble.
55 at least. Is a good
No, I
age.
think we're very close in age. Very close indeed.
Because I did a Broadway musical in 65, 30 years ago, with your wife, Carrie.
I know, and I watched it from the audience.
Yes. At least
Yeah.
once.
And so people immediately are thinking, gee, I didn't realize he was a singer. Because we seldom hear you raise your voice in song.
Well, you know, I do have the worst voice in the world. And when I was doing that musical, the musical director, sweet man, Stanley Dabowski, who died a few years ago, he didn't believe what was coming out of my mouth. He thought I was being funny. So he said, no, come on, be serious. Sing.
People
I
might
said,
think you
I can't. He said, sing your own national anthem. I said, I've forgotten the tune. So in the end, he said, listen, there's no problem. He said, just mine. So instead of singing half a sixpence is better than half a penny, wonderful lyric, he just said mime, and I sit at the back of this big chorus. You see? And after about 6 weeks, we'd been on Broadway, and I got a little more confident. People liked the show, and I liked the people in the show very much. I had very warm memories about them. So I started to sing. And 2 days later, at the end of the show, Stanley came up to me and he said, John? I said, yes, Stan? He said, you singing? I said, just a bit, Stanley. He said, don't. I was in a Broadway musical and I never sang.
Is there any is there a word for the person who can't remember the melody of his own national anthem?
We say he has a tin ear.
Tin ear. We have tin ears over here,
I don't
too,
think we have any other expression. Stupid is another one.
Stupid, yeah.
Musically stupid.
Not worth hiring again. There are a lot of phrases. But this man's ear could pick your atonality or whatever it is out of an entire stage
Apparently
of people
he was
and tell
very
you to
good.
knock
Well,
it off.
he was good, you know, and he could just tell there was this one person singing very, very, very quietly, completely off key, and he could pick it out from about 40 people.
I love the idea of people starting rumors. Cleese is going to sing again. He's threatening to sing again
See, in
tonight.
the third number in the second act.
Keep an eye on him. He's at it again. We'll be back with John Cleese right after several carefully selected and excellent messages. Talking with John Cleese. Now, let's see, the difference between British and American humor again, or what?
Oh, that's awfully dull.
Can you imagine anything worse?
That's the worst. Oh, that's the worst of all
awfully dull.
questions. Yeah.
I mean, what could they possibly be? If you had to invent them for that
the worst is
question.
what happened on set that was funny. That's the one that you always die. You know? So when you were making the film, something very funny must have happened
Tell
on
all
set.
the funny stuff. And of course you realize nothing funny.
Well, they must have done. You think, yes, there must have been something funny, but you never remember what it was.
Or the most embarrassing experience of your life. The fact, it's no accident people can't remember it, because it was that embarrassing. You've obviously repressed it or
Yes,
something.
that's
So
right. Of
there's
course,
no
that's
way
what
to ever
repression is about. If you remembered it on air, they'd be taking you away in white jackets. Yes, that's right. I was thinking about amnesia, you know. The worst form of amnesia is when you come and appear on a talk show like this, you can't remember what you're plugging.
Oh, that would be something, wouldn't it?
That
But
would be
how
terrible.
refreshing it would be. I understand you have an exciting new project. And
Yes, that's right.
I do?
Yes, that's right. I do. I used to have this sketch about this guy who discovered the secret of life. You know, when he goes on television to talk about it, and the interviewer says, "So you found this?" He says, "Yes, I have." He says, "What is it?" He says, "Wait a minute. You know what I mean?" And I did this once on Danish television. I actually did this on Danish television in Copenhagen. The interviewer took me completely seriously. He really thought he was going to get the secret of life, and you could see the disappointment going over his face when I had clearly forgotten it. And all I could think, he said, "Well, what sort of a thing is it?" And I said, "Well, it's something to do with fish." Because I knew the Danes would like that, you know, anything to do with herrings, and they're happy.
Now, were you covered with whatever the counterpart of tar is in Denmark when you realized you were just
Well, it's
kidding?
interesting you should ask me that, because this is Dick, when I came on your show before, if indeed it was I who...
I think it was you. Something.
You had a very nice table, and... what?
Oh, this is one of the...
Have they cut the budget, or what? It's not even in a very good place, you see. It's half on the carpet and half off. Do you
It
think
can't decide where it wants to
Can we
stand.
have someone come and put it all entirely on the carpet?
I
can't help feeling this is the sort of thing that should have been done before the show started.
Very
but,
flexible. I'm terribly sorry
Thank you
about
very
this.
much. No, not at all. That's very good. And it's safe to put that on, is it?
Well,
Yes. Very
oh,
nice.
see, wait a minute. When you put your cup,
Oh, that's good.
my side
all
goes
right, We'll drink
down.
at the same time. Okay.
Ready?
We're all right. Well, it's very interesting you should ask me that, Dick, because this is a book.
The fish called Wanda, it's called.
No, it's
Oh, no,
called
I'm just guessing.
Life and How to Survive It. Life and How to Survive It.
Yeah.
And it's extremely interesting. Now, what else should we talk about?
Let's see. Wuthering Heights. I think
Wuthering
that's also
Heights.
a book, isn't it?
Yes, we're doing a ballet, a humorous ballet based on that. So this book I wrote with my ex-shrink, and it is extremely good.
Ex-shrink.
Ex-shrink, yes.
Yeah.
He was my therapist between 75 and 78.
Your former head candler.
Yes. He and I became pals about a year after.
Yeah.
And I eventually said to him, let's do a series of television. And you can imagine how easy it was to sell to television a series about ideas. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I assume American television even worse than English television, but if Jesus Christ himself was going to come into the studio, the director would be saying, that's great, but what are the pictures going to be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they wanted to televise therapy and have people bursting into tears because that would be great television. But they were not interested in the idea, so we eventually put it in a book.
Where you don't have to worry about pictures, and there
Don't have
probably
to worry
are there no
about
pictures to color?
There
in
are
or-
actually some very good cartoons, but lovely, funny, whoops, sorry,
Table again.
lovely one. Do you think we should have somebody in there holding it? Could you just come in and just hold the table still?
I think if we
while
had
we're-
some gum, you know, or a coaster or something to put under it, or
I want to throw it away. Can I throw it away?
give it a heave.
Yes, can we do that?
Let's
I
get
think
rid
it'd
of
be
the
great
damn
fun.
thing.
Let's get rid of the water.
You can throw it away with the mugs on it if you. Oh my!
There's the mug.
Oh,
she's
John,
dropped that.
he's lost.
Straight over that camera. There we are. Okay. And now. There!
Oh, sorry, Miss.
Smudge it.
Oh,
Sorry.
she was to be our next guest.
Oh,
Oh, she's 84 to hell with it.
anyway. You're so fool. So,
I don't believe it. Nothing like this has ever happened to me in my life.
you can't even remember who your guests have been, so you wouldn't even be able to remember whether anything like this had happened.
I wonder if they'll be able to stanch the bleeding over there. The guest you injured.
Here's a funny bit.
But frivolously,
Yes.
John.
Frivolously, no.
I was wondering something, but I have no idea what it was.
I want to read you
Oh, I
something
know.
from the book. For example, one of the things in the book we say, what a rubbish romantic love is. And everyone goes, oh, romantic love is wonderful. And I say here, take the great love stories. Romeo and Juliet, La Traviata, Anna Karenina, Carmen, Antony and Cleopatra, Aida, Dr. Zhivago, Tristan and Isolde, brief encounter. Mention them to people. A dreamy radiance passes across their face and they say, oh, they're wonderful, aren't they? So romantic. Well, they're not wonderful. They are tales of almost unmitigated misery. There's not 10 minutes of good, clean fun in any of them. The lovers usually get one dollop of over-the-top ecstasy, apart from that, it's wall-to-wall suffering. They get stabbed, walled up in tombs. They throw themselves under trains. They commit suicide.
We'll be right
with
back
acid.
with John
They
Cleese.
throw themselves under trains. They commit suicide with acid.
Back with John Cleese, and he had one of his spells. I don't know what happened. He doesn't know what happened. His wife's humiliated and went home.
I've had an injection now, so I'm very, very serious.
Yeah, somebody pointed out. Oh, you were reading from your book. Now,
Somebody took it away.
I feel awful about this because the book is called Life and How to Survive It. And the fact is that after your stunt that you pulled on the Danes, no one's going to believe that there actually is such a book.
No, that's true. But it is
Because it's
seriously
almost-
there. And it is the reason I did it, to be solemn for a moment, is that the guy I wrote it with, whose name is Robin Skinner, is a very wise old bird. He's one of the 5 or 6 wise old birds that I've ever met in my life. And it was an opportunity to examine what unusual psychological health would be. Because the funny thing about psychiatry is it's based on the study of sick people, which is kind of strange, because if you wanted to get better and healthier, you think you might look at the healthiest people and say, well, what are they doing that's working for them? So that's what the first chapter's about. And then we get into bigger and bigger groups looking at the same kind of questions for organizations, hospitals, schools, businesses, then society. Then the 4th chapter is a kind of discussion of values, because basically the reason we do certain things is because they fit with our value system. And finally, there's a chapter on change, which Robin is a bit of an expert on so far as families and individuals go. We talk about how to change an organization, how to change society. So all human life is there.
All of human life.
All of human life is there.
And this is a man who helped you say?
Yeah. Yes, I was in his group in the mid-70s when my first marriage to Connie Booth broke up. I was very depressed for 2 years, I should think. I mean, I was functioning. I don't mean I couldn't go to work or anything. But at the weekend, I tended just to sit there and stare out into the garden. And he got me through that and gave me some ways of thinking that helped enormously. And then, as I say, he and I became great friends later when I was no longer his patient. And I was talking to him Sunday.
Group therapy, you have also...
Yeah, well, I was in group, and then I did some individual later.
Yeah.
Very interesting, because when you're in a... Have you ever done group?
Once for about 2 or 3 sessions. And then somebody brought in a tape of Barbara Streisand singing People Who Need People and wanted to know why this was important. The philosophy of the song.
Wonderful.
And I would much rather hear you sing.
Well, what is
And I
fascinating
couldn't
about
take
being
that.
in a group is that after a time you actually see a piece of behavior in someone else that you've not kind of noticed or observed before, something of that kind. And after you've observed it in them, you suddenly see it in somebody else in the group. And then, of course, after a time, you see it in yourself. And that's fascinating, because the other thing works, too, because you notice a bit of behavior or way of thinking of yourself. And you become more aware of that, then you start seeing it in someone else. So it's marvelous, because you see yourself in other people, and you see other people in yourself. So, and it's not only kind of making you better by becoming more aware, but it's actually giving you a better understanding of other people.
Now, when you say that you were staring in the garden on the weekend, you were able to work, escape into your work, or do your work in spite of?
I think
how
do
you
my
felt?
work to some extent in spite of being depressed.
Yeah. And then you said he gave you a different way of thinking?
Yes, you see, one of the things about England is there's a line that Basil Fawlty has in one of the Fawlty Towers episodes when he says, well, you know, somebody, I think Polly says to him, Manuel's depressed, and he says, depressed? What's the point of being depressed? We didn't win the war by getting depressed, you know. And there's that kind of feeling in England about depression, that it's a waste of time.
Pull up your socks.
Pull up your socks, have a double scotch, and get out and enjoy yourself. Pull yourself together. Whereas what I learned from Robin is that he believes that depression is very often kind of block sadness. And if you can, you're stuck. It isn't moving. But if you can actually sit there and feel that sadness, which is nothing like as frightening as you think it's going to be, you start feeling more alive, even though you feel the sadness much more. And because you're feeling it, it can then begin to move and shift.
Interesting.
Yeah?
Yeah. How does that help the lady who's bleeding over there, though, from being struck by a table by a rude foreigner?
Well, from the signals they're making, I think she has no more problems of that kind.
Has she joined the great majority?
She
The
has.
silent majority?
Yes. So never mind, most of the best people are dead. Has that struck you? Aristotle's dead.
That's quite a list, isn't
Quite
there?
a lot. Abraham Lincoln?
Are there more people dead than alive?
Must be.
Because the population of the Earth was small, before, and so are there more dead people? Than
Yes, but they're all dead.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I see.
So I think they outnumber us.
I read something, by the way, not to brush that aside, but we only have a minute left, and I think you and someone agreed that falling is perhaps the funniest thing there is, particularly when it's a public figure.
That's right.
Do you remember a president of the United States once getting off an airplane and where was it?
I once had tea with Jacques Tati. Isn't that a great name to drop?
Tea with Tati.
And not only did Jerry fall down the steps flat onto the concrete, but when he got up and dusted himself off, he strode up, not to Monsieur Pompidou, the French president who was standing there with him, but to the Spanish ambassador, who was the senior diplomat.
He got the wrong man.
Took him by the arm and walked off down the red carpet, leaving the president of France wondering what he should do next. And then went on to Vienna, U.S. Embassy the same evening. Huge ball. Appears at the top of the steps, falls down the steps twice in a day, and this was the man who could press the nuclear button. You can't beat that.
If he didn't fall on it first. The true version of the Gerald Ford story. Well, damn, we're out of time. Life and
How to survive it.
by two gentlemen that'll really hand you a laugh. Thanks to John Cleese. Sorry to the table supplier. It was Grandma's favorite antique table, by the way. It's been with me on every show I've ever done.
Etruscan, I think, was it?
Now it's in splinters. Etruscan, yes. An artifact.
Tonight, the movies that I'm sure you're familiar with. I want to tell you about the man who directed them. First, this is